Well, hi there, everyone. I'm going to talk about a subject that actually makes me quite angry, and a lot of people are indeed ignorant of it, as is shown by the number of people who actually are in possession of such a device. I'm talking about smart cellular phones, like this one, for example. This is an iPhone 5. Got all the kind of standard sort of things to it. It's got an internet connection, camera on both sides. It's got about 16 gigabytes of memory. Not a whole lot of memory for how much a cell phone can hold. But there's a number of things that are wrong with these devices. They're all made in China, of course. That's not necessarily the problem. But what people don't understand is that all the information that's gathered by these devices is sent over to China. It's part of the business deal they made with them, and it is not covered by, even if you'd even call it alternate news on Facebook or the internet as a whole. You're not going to find it. People shield this sort of stuff, and they defend it and deny its existence. And there's just no open forum where you can have discussion with this, except for when you know people in the real world, which if you're a loner such as myself, it can be difficult to reach certain people, or to anybody for that matter. I'm going to get into the things that are particularly wrong with smartphones. As everyone knows, they can track you wherever you go. They have a complete history somewhere in their database of exactly everywhere you've been. They can ping your phone at any time and figure out where you are. So those are things to be concerned with. But those, I can more or less understand why they need them, in case, somebody committed a crime, or they're a person at large, or whatever. The ability to be able to find them quickly and easily, and through this means, as opposed to what it says on Facebook, where they're going to microchip everybody and blah, blah, blah. Of course, that's not going to happen, especially when people will voluntarily buy a smartphone because they want access to the internet, access to free speech. They want to be able to take pictures whenever they want to, and they want to make phone calls, and they want to be able to Google restaurant ratings and things like that. Those are all simple wants and needs. I mean, the phone book is going out the window, and that's too bad, because it was a very useful little booklet. It told you about things, told you phone numbers, and people did things the old-fashioned way back then. Anyway, that's a little less infuriating than the next problem with smartphones that I'm going to get on. I'm building up to it, okay? For starters, everybody who has a smartphone has an internet connection, so that we're clear on that. Everyone has one. Whether you can access it yourself, whether you can visibly see that you have one or not, depends on if you're paying for it or not. If you're not paying for it, it'll appear as though that you don't have one. But these things are Wi-Fi compatible. They're all Wi-Fi compatible. And if you're not paying for an internet connection, the internet company can still access your phone and all its information, and you're not required to know. You're under their business terms when you sign up with them, and nobody reads all the fine print, and there's probably hundreds of useless pages of it, and it probably doesn't say exactly that they can look into your phone to see what pictures you've been taking, in case you've been someplace you don't want to be. They don't want you to be. And that is also a significant thing, but also not the main problem I have with smartphones. Well, this is it, okay? It's an awkward thing to bring up, but these cell phones are connected to the internet. And one of the top 5 things that young people do when they're on the internet is look up porn. It's just a fact. Adolescents and adults all look up porn. And their odds are they're going to go into private places and they're going to have a little wank. That's to be expected. In fact, that's psychology. That's like a guaranteed sort of thing to happen. I mean, chimpanzees do it all the time. Not with cell phones, of course, but that's just what happens. The fact that there's a camera in front of this, that could be labeled as child pornography. It is predominantly men who will be doing that, but it's not to say young girls aren't going to do it. And you may go, whoa, how can this thing, is there someone really on the end of the line who's going to know when I got my fly open and I'm having one off? No, not necessarily, unless they like you too much or something. But there are mechanisms, triggers, that indicate if you may be looking at porn or not, and that may activate your cell phone's camera. And it doesn't necessarily mean because there's a red light appearing or a flash or whatever that your camera's operable. It doesn't need to do those things for it to start functioning. In fact, it doesn't have to give you any warning signs that it's activated at all. And a simple trigger might be, well, the obvious one is looking up a porn website. That would be an obvious one. The camera and audio equipment could be turned on immediately the second it gets that trigger. There's that. Even having dirty images or uploaded video from your own, even if you don't have an internet connection, as I explained, just because you don't have one doesn't mean the cell phone provider doesn't have one on you. It might be enough of a trigger because of all the data that would be available on your phone. And you go, what twisted person would put this into a phone and then have it be like that? Well, it's part of the deal they made with China. You may go, well, child pornography is not really big in Asia. It's more of an American problem. No, that's not true at all. That's completely false. That's the most ignorant thing you could say. It is very, very big, and for the most part, I'm not going to say legal, but it doesn't get punished or even frowned upon enough. I mean, human trafficking, child prostitution, they're all rampant in Asia. Thailand is the obvious example. And you get idiots around here. It's so funny. Like this one Italian guy was telling me, yeah, well, why don't you go to Thailand? I'm like, no, I'm not going to Thailand. I don't like that whole area. Why on earth would I go to Thailand? You go to Thailand if you want. I'm not going. I mean, boy prostitutes running around and all the other screwed up things with that country and that's the other thing. Thailand and China and all those countries, they're all run by China. That's the basics of it, okay? China's the one who pulls the strings. They may act independent, they may have their own language and history, but they're all run by one country. The thing is, there's a camera on the front of this, which I don't think there should be, and that's predominantly so people can take selfies, a term that got coined when the smartphone showed up. How convenient that people can take selfies and even take selfies of themselves in a light they wouldn't ordinarily approve of because they just don't know. And all this information, limitless information, gets sent to Asia, where it is sold and has been sold by um, by the Apple company in particular, as well as other smartphone companies. Um, that's just the truth of the matter. To be honest with you, you shouldn't even give your child one of these things. You should, I don't know how you tell them not to use it, but you should figure out a way of convincing them they don't need one. Regular cell phone, absolutely, with no camera, rudimentary audio recording equipment. That's all they need. They don't need a smartphone like this. As I said, it's the mechanisms and the triggers that activate the camera. And looking at pornography is one reason why those triggers can be activated. And we do live in a sick, twisted world where people of higher standing are literally screwed up in the head. They've got a completely different outlook on life. And it's all about money to them and power and getting their way. And you don't have to play into that game. You don't have to listen to them. You don't have to be an idiot and just be a modern day slave. I mean, I see people all the time walking down the street with their phone like this, looking down on it, going, and we just go, like me and my friend are driving by and we go, he's addicted, or he's stunned, right up to them. We yell that out the window as we see them walking on their phone, because you're looking at your phone, you're walking on the street. What are you, an idiot? You're gonna get hit by a car. That's another thing, but I won't get into that because that's less significant. I guarantee you, and I'm not saying that these adolescents are intentionally, or most of them are intentionally taking pictures of their junk, but if you're, relieving some stress, odds are it's going to see that. And pornography is a highly profitable industry. And in Asia, there are a lot of, it's a predominantly male society, and they like to get their hands on that sort of stuff. Because they ain't got nothing else. Or that's just what they're into. Because of reasons I don't know. I just know that sort of stuff is happening. Yeah, a lot of people, they don't even think about it, have no concern about it, and to me, I just sound like a crackpot conspiracy theorist. But these things with these phones are inherently evil. The potential for great evil with these devices is too high. It's not worth the risk. And it's not like they're that cheap. This one, I got $270 off because of the Fido dollars my dad had collected, but still cost me like $500. But then again, I got a Defender hard case, or it's made of rubber, but it could withstand quite a bit. Like, I've yet to have an iPhone to crack on me or anything like that. On a side note, I am responsible with my phone. I never work my junk in front of it. Never take pictures of myself. I have no interest in doing that, other than making videos for YouTube. So that doesn't involve anything to do with my junk. Yeah, I'm telling you, if the potential for that to happen is there, then it's happening. And it may be happening so high up the line that your common, everyday cell phone provider, internet provider is the people you speak with on the phone are blissfully unaware of it themselves. But we don't know that. We know they work for an inherently evil system. And it's evil on so many levels. Invasion of privacy is the major one, on not just the pornography side of things, but your online banking, how you track your money, things like that. They want to move society to a cashless money base where everything's bought on credit card and debit, and all the money is controlled. I mean, that would just turn into a bartering system where people would barter possessions they have to get other possessions. so that the big brother, the government, doesn't know exactly everything you're spending your money on. Not that they have the right to do that. They shouldn't have the right to do that. But we live in an authoritarian society where they tell us what things are, a dogmatic rhetoric, and we're not supposed to ask questions. And most places that tell you, we're asking the questions, we're getting the answers for you. No, they're not. They're telling you the basic story that the government wants to tell you. Because if it were the stories that the kind of questions people have and sort of things that don't fit in with the narrative of the government or big companies or any of those sort of things, then it'll get no attention. As I said in my previous video, anything they don't want to hear doesn't get heard, gets ignored, gets put in the corner, gets forgotten about. And these things are very evil, and people ought to know that. I may have made a video months, maybe even almost a year ago, talking a little bit about this sort of stuff, but I don't remember it too well, and I wanted an up-to-date version of it. So that's the gist of it. And all these smartphones are just as guilty as each other. Don't think just because you don't have an iPhone you have a Samsung or an Android or whatever the hell the difference is, I don't know. Don't think that makes you safe. It doesn't. I mean, people would be a lot better off if they had a map book with them at all times, if they had a calculator, you know, a kind of camera similar to the Canon I'm recording this video on, that doesn't have an internet connection. It has a memory stick, but it doesn't do anything until I put it in the computer. So there's that. These are things that we'd be better off if that's what people have. They'd well, they would leave a far less of a carbon footprint on the planet, which would be a good thing. But more the evil associated with these pieces of equipment, technological equipment, is what the real issue is. Anyway, yeah, that was the gist of it. A real serious problem, and it is something you should at least consider if you're buying one of these phones for yourself or for someone else. It's good to think about these sort of things, because you never know who's watching. Anyway, that's about all I got to say. Yeah, talk to you guys later.